Good morning, everybody. My name is Suzanne Walker. I am the supervisor of the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. Thanks so much for joining us today. Our webinar is scheduled to start at 9:30 today. I think some of our attendees may have thought that we started at 10, so I'm sort of anticipating people to roll in as we're going. But thank you guys all for being here today. We're really excited to have Courtney Block with us, Selina Gomez-Beloz, and Megan Zanto from the ILF office to talk about how to attend a conference and get the most out of your experience. It's not just packing a cardigan. So I am going to start out with a few announcements like we always do. The webinar is provided as part of the Library Trends and Hot Topics series. To register for other webinars in that series or other trainings from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which is on our website at library.in.gov under Services for Libraries. For a full list of our current in-person training menu, please see our continuing education website. The State Library has many ways that we try to stay connected to library staff across the state. For weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, be sure to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the Wednesday Word. We also offer a blog which provides information about the State Library's collection, interview spotlights on library staff from across the state, and information about upcoming events at the State Library. We don't anticipate there being any sound issues today. Lisa just posted some information about sound in the chat box. If you have any issues, be sure to look at the audio setup wizard in the box below the chat box. If there is a global sound issue, we will post it in the chat box, but right now we are not experiencing any sound issues. Today's webinar is going to be recorded and archived and available to share afterwards. There are no LEUs for the webinar today, which might be another reason why we don't have as many people in the room as we were anticipating. Mostly because a lot of this is just good common sense information about attending conferences. But I have been wanting to do this webinar for a long, long time, and I'm really excited that I've got such a great panel to help today. So we're going to get started with Selina, and Selina is going to talk to us about how to attend a conference with the manager's point of view. So Selina, you can go ahead.
Good morning. So I am Selina Gomez-Beloz. I'm the director of the Crown Point Community Library, and I have been attending conferences for about 23 years now. And so I have a lot of conferences under my belt and a lot of different types of conferences. So I do have a perspective of being a frontline staff and getting permission to go to these things and finding the correct type of conferences to go that best benefit my community in the area that I worked, and then also as a manager, finding ways to assist frontline staff to go to conferences and to get the most out of them and to bring back a benefit to the library. So I'm going to give you a little bit from the public library side as a manager, as an administrator, on what I'm looking for to help my staff get to conferences. Obviously, you know, there are webinars and things of that sort where we do information like this, and that's pretty easy to do. You schedule out time. But when you go to an in-person conference, there's a lot more than just attending. You know, there's budget considerations, there's grants that you can get, there's ways of being involved in conferences that can assure your being able to attend, like giving a poster presentation or doing a session presentation, and all that takes a lot of forward planning, sometimes a year in advance to know what you want to do. But also what I like to hear, and the way that I've been trained, is to always find a way to write your justification so that your experience brings something back to the library. So not only do you gain something from it, but the library gains something from it at the same time. What I have done over the years, and I've worked with other people, is to always write up my expectations. So, and they can be very simple and sort of very the same, what word am I looking for? The same way to write an expectation. I expect to bring back information on adult programming to better benefit my community. I expect to learn more about diversity initiatives that I can then work with this segment of my community at the library. So things of that sort. And then to be able then to make sure that I attend sessions that actually give me that information. So you really want to make sure that you're doing that too. What I would definitely suggest, and what I look for as a director, is that my staff are not just attending ALA or PLA, but they're attending different types of conferences. So, for example, I am the immediate past president of Reforma, and so I highly advocate for the ethnic caucus conferences. So the Reforma National Conference, unfortunately, was just canceled in Puerto Rico because of the hurricane. But the Reforma National Conference, the Joint Conference of Librarians of Color, um, the Chinese American Library Association Conference, the Bacala Conference, which was in Atlanta just recently. These are all really fantastic conferences that really get down to a little bit more meat of issues, and it's a little easier to network with people. ALA can be 25,000 people all at once in a city, whereas, for example, the last Reforma conference was about 500. So it's a little easier to network with people. It's a little easier to really engage with people. Right now I have someone who's leaving today for the ABOS conference, and I'm not going to remember what that's about. It's like the mobile outreach conference, which is very specific for us because we just got a new mobile outreach van. So that was really important, we thought, to send a staff person to that. I just sent somebody to a library marketing conference in Georgia not too long ago. Again, that was my communication specialist. So it's something that's very directly related to the work that we're doing. And I think that if you are interested in attending conferences, it's always great to go to ALA or PLA, but really look for those local conferences or more specific conferences that can really give you more detailed information about what you need for your job or what you need for your personal and professional growth. I think that's really fantastic. And definitely write up a proposal. Just saying, hey, I want to go isn't always the best argument. Really write up a proposal as to why you want to do that and know how much it's going to cost. And if you can apply for grants, I highly suggest you do that. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk a little bit about being a great attender at a conference. One of the things that happens is that you meet a ridiculous amount of people, and it's always very hard to remember, so you definitely want business cards. That's always one of the first tips, to have a business card. One thing that someone told me a couple years ago that I started doing is that when I meet somebody, particularly if it's at a social event, that when you get their business card, take a picture with them. Take a selfie with them so that you can put a face to that name. Because when you come home, you have a deck of cards that you could, play an interesting round of poker with, a name poker with, and you don't know who you were talking to if you don't take notes on that card. That was a really helpful thing for me to be able to say, I remember who that is. They have information that would be beneficial to us, or maybe there's something I can share that would be beneficial to them. And that's a great way to build your network. If you are not, when you go to a large conference, there's all kinds of swag. Taking home an extra bag can be expensive if your airline does not offer you free baggage. So please make sure that when you go through, you're picking up what you want. I was once working with a system that was very environmentally conscious, so they asked us not to bring home anything that we were going to throw away anyway. Bookmarks that really didn't meet what we needed to hand out, or posters that had the wrong kind of marketing on it, so it wouldn't look like we were advertising. And then, of course, you pick up those ARC books, the Advanced Reader's Copy, and remember, you cannot add those to the collection generally, and you cannot sell them. So if you're not going to read them for yourself or give them away to people or use them for prizes, then you want to really be careful about what you're bringing home in your bag, because you're going to pay more money to mail those things out, and that mail line can get very, very long. If you want to see an author, be prepared to stay in line for a really long time. Those lines are very long, And you want to make sure that you're prepared for that, not only in good shoes, but in time. Because if you plan on getting signatures or on your books from different authors, you may miss sessions. And you want to make sure that you are planning out your sessions so that you can attend one, determine if it's really what you thought it was, because sometimes it's not what you think it is, and then can go to the next one, or you can get to the correct place at the correct time. ALA, though they try to put their sessions in the conference center, um, there will be sessions that are in hotels, and you need to be able to get the bus or take a cab and get to one place to another. So you really want to plan out where everything is at and what sessions you're going to attend. Please do go to open committee meetings. Don't be shy. Go to the PLA open committee meetings. Go to the YALSA open committee meetings. They're always looking for volunteers, and it might be something that you're very interested in, and it's a great way to meet other people. It's also a great way, if you decide that conference going is really something that you like, that you can continue to stay involved by having responsibilities. Because a lot of times, these committees, this is the only time that they meet in person, is at the conferences. So, not only is it a little bit more work for you, but it could be very rewarding and a chance for you to attend conferences on a fairly regular basis, perhaps. Be sure that you have something else to do. At ALA, at least, they have the Library Uncommons, where there are sessions being held on the fly, and they also have crafting circles. So if you're a crafter, it's a great way to take a break and to meet people still again, and to do something just to relax your mind and take a breather and be able to move on to the next thing that you're going to. If you are going with a friend or a coworker, spread out the sessions so that you all can bring back even more information and share that with your coworkers. I can't stress enough how important it is to share this with your coworkers, because not everyone is going to be able to attend a conference. And there's always something to benefit someone. The joke for me is when I go to a conference, I bring back all these programming ideas. I don't do programming anymore, but it's like, uh-oh, Selina has all kinds of ideas, and I start handing them out to people. And we get about half of them come to fruition after about a year, which is always really exciting to see what other people are doing and be able to implement that in our own libraries. Another thing I want to tell you about, even if you're not looking for a job, at ALA they do have the Job Placement Center, and they will review your resume. It's always important to keep your resume updated, and you can get professional headshots taken. Although generally when you're looking for a job you don't send in a headshot, it's always nice to have a current photo of yourself. So the photo that's on the slide now, that's a selfie. It's not too bad. But sometimes for things like this, or when you're doing a presentation and they want a picture, it's always great to have a nice professional picture for yourself. And then after that, after you're all done and you're back home, write a report. Talk about what you've done and who you've met and all the great things that you've learned, and do it quickly, because it's so easy to forget. You're so tired afterwards. It's been so rewarding, and just make sure you get all of your ideas out. Distribute your swag. Everybody likes an extra pen. And then start developing a plan on how maybe you want to implement what you've learned, or how you want to represent your library at future conferences. Because like I said, it does take planning if you want to present your idea or present one of your successes at a different library, or at a different conference, sorry. So you want to make sure you learn the due dates for proposals. You want to make sure you know the dates for various conferences, so you can spread it out on your calendar and work with your coworkers and your manager or your director so that you can get the most out of that each and every year if you can, and to share the wealth. That's a really fast breakdown of how I worked with conferences. Again, I can't stress enough, finding those smaller conferences. They tend to be a little bit cheaper, they tend to be a little bit faster, and they can really target the things that you're working on and are interested in. It doesn't have to be just ALA. That can get pricey, and you will either always be too hot or too cold because it's always in the wrong part of the country at the wrong season, because it just works better that way.
Thank you so much, Selina.
Thank you.
Does anybody have questions for Selina? If you do, go ahead and type them in the chat box. I do have one. You sort of alluded to this, but as a manager, are you okay with your staff taking breaks at conferences? You kind of mentioned that, but can you just talk a little bit more about that?
I think it's really important. I really don't think it's realistic to assume that someone will fill every hour of their day with sessions. I think that networking and listening and watching other people is really valuable. So if you get to go, for example, to an opening session where there's a speaker and you get to sit down and put your stuff down in a nice, cool auditorium and hear an author, I think that's just as valuable as sitting in a session about data analysis for library statistics. So I think it is really important because you really can burn out very quickly. And I've gone through the sense of guilt of not being able to attend everything I wanted to because of distance or time. And you can beat yourself up about that too much. I think it's really, as long as you can come back with something, I think that's very important.
Great. Thank you so much. So our next speaker is Courtney Block. She's the Instruction, Reference, and User Engagement Librarian at Indiana University Southeast. And I did forget to mention that Selina is the director at the Crown Point Community Library. So thank you, Selina, very much. Okay, so Courtney's going to give us a little bit of an academic take on conference attending. And if you guys have questions for Selina or Courtney, feel free to type them in the chat box. Thanks so much. Go ahead, Courtney.
Thanks, Suzanne. I hope you guys can hear me okay. My name is Courtney Block, and I'm the Instruction, Reference, and User Engagement Librarian at Indiana University Southeast. I know that's a mouthful, but what I'm going to talk about today is building on what Selina talked about. I spent the first 6 years of my professional librarian career in public libraries, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the staff side of that, and then also morph into talking about academic librarianship conference issues. So to build quite nicely on what Selina talked about as a director, when I was in the public sector, when multiple colleagues and I were going to the same conference, we would always confer a couple of days before, or even on the drive up, if we were driving, that is, about which sessions we were going to, just to ensure that we weren't all going to the same sessions. And planning that out beforehand is really important, because once you guys get there, I mean, there's just so much to do and so much to see, and it's hard to sort of get with everybody and plan everything out once you get there. So we always try to do that beforehand. And our goal was to organizationally ensure that we were getting the most bang for our buck, because conferences do cost money. They cost money to attend, they cost money to get to, and they cost money in terms of, you are not at the library during those days, and so, that's time and money as well. So for the most part, this worked out quite well because we all naturally had our own interests in mind. There wasn't ever an issue of two people arguing about which session to go to. So it's always nice to just go ahead and do that ahead of time. So how do I choose to attend conferences as an academic librarian now? The good thing is that my schedule isn't really tied into my colleagues in quite the same way that it was in the public sector. So I feel like I have a little bit more autonomy to sort of chart my own course in terms of my own niche that I have here at the university, which happens to be user engagement and outreach and advocacy. So I look for conferences that, even if that's not the entire focus, can offer me some insight into those aspects of my job. The ACRL, which is the Association for College and Research Libraries, has a national conference. I think the next one is 2019 in Cleveland, and so that's not too awful far away, depending on where you are in Indiana. They also have offshoots of various, committees that they have. So if you are an academic librarian, you might want to look into that. There's also ILUG, which is the Indiana Online User Group, and that's a nice conference that is based right here in Indiana, and it's full of librarians from academic librarians from across the state that are mainly sort of talking about some type of project or research initiative. It's really quite unique, and it's a good small conference too. So if you're sort of wanting to get your feet wet with a smaller conference, then you might want to consider that one. Another thing that I like to do, and I noticed that we have a typed question here from Suzanne. Have any of you attended a conference that was not as typical for a librarian? That was a perfect segue, because you always want to try to think outside the box. What I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. So one of my research agendas is all about user engagement and social media. And I recently did a study that used Snapchat as an advocacy tool specifically for first-year college students. And I saw actually in a listserv, I think, that the Pop Culture Association of America has a libraries and museum track, and I hadn't previously known that. And if somebody had just said to me like, hey, check out the Pop Culture Conference, I would say, what are you talking about? But they have a library and museum track, and so I submitted my proposal, and it was accepted. So another thing that you want to do, that anybody really wants to do, whether you're public librarian or not, but especially if you're an academic librarian, is to consider presenting at a conference, because publishing and output is an expected and required component of my job as an academic librarian. So presenting at a conference counts for publication and creative work. Doing a poster session counts as publication and creative work. So you always want to maybe consider that too, especially if you're in academic librarianship, but also anybody really, regardless of what type of librarian you are, should be encouraged to submit proposals for your ideas, because that's what it's all about, right? Is networking with each other and getting ideas and seeing what everybody's doing. I'm going to echo again what Selina said about grants. Conferences can definitely be expensive, especially if they're national conferences and they're located like all the way across the country. So look for grants, look for ways to fund your travel, see if the conference itself has some scholarships available. Let's see here. So as far as like attending, once again, I'll echo what Selina said about business cards, and I am horrible at that. So I always try to like make it a point. I'll put reminders in my phone, write little notes to myself, because I have been stuck at conferences before without business cards, and it's really the worst. I also want to stress, consider attending one of the social functions if the conference offers one. And I know that the bigger ones like ALA and PLA do. But definitely do that, because networking is important, and also getting out and experiencing the area that the conference is in is also important. And so go do those things with people that you're meeting at the conference. Even if there's not special social functions that are offered, consider just having lunch or dinner with someone that you've met at a session. Make it a point to really put yourself out there and engage with other people and not, just sort of have lunch off to the side by yourself. Because networking is so important during these events, and it can also be fun, right? I mean, you don't have to sit around talking shop, but you can swap stories, you can brainstorm with other people. I've always found that it's actually a really fun thing to do. I always make sure that even though it's not just about a cardigan, I do make sure that I have a sweater and a water bottle, because you just never can tell what the temperature is going to be, and there's nothing worse than being in a conference room that is just so freezing cold that is the only thing you can focus on. And when I go to conferences, any conference really, I try to dress business casual. I want to network with people and I want to make a good impression. I also want to be comfortable, so I understand that it's a balance, but I do always try to make it a point to look pretty professional. And I think that sensible shoes are probably the make or break factor there. When I'm attending sessions, I prefer to take handwritten notes, just like on a piece of paper or in the conference booklet or on a pad of paper that I've brought myself. I don't typically use any technology to take notes when I'm there, and that's just because I've been to one too many sessions where there's somebody furiously hitting the keyboard on their laptop, or who has not turned off the little keyboard blips on their iPad. So that's one thing that I like to do. And I'll finish up here, Suzanne. I like to follow up by just sending emails to people that I've met. That's pretty easy for me, and then I have that stream in my email that I can go back to easily if I need to. And another reason I like to handwrite my notes is because I will create documents of the conferences that I went to, and so as I type it, it's a perfect way for me to review and add my own notes about what I learned.
Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions for Courtney? Oh, sorry. Courtney, did you talk about conference guilt, or was that Selina?
Selina talked about conference guilt, and but I definitely, I want to echo her and say that you have to have those moments that you just sort of maybe take a little bit of a break, or take a walk, or something. So yeah, I echo that, but she did talk about it.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and talk now. This is Suzanne. I'm the professional development supervisor here at the State Library, and like you might assume, I've been to lots and lots of conferences. What you might not know about me is that I'm very hesitant to attend conferences sometimes because I experience a lot of conference anxiety. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. The first thing I wanted to mention is that I always try to plan ahead a lot when I'm attending a conference. That really helps me with anxiety. That way I kind of know what I'm gonna do. Some conferences have an app that you can use, and that can be really, really helpful. So if you're planning on going to a conference, take a look at the app and get a good plan ready to go. That really helps me when I'm feeling anxious about attending a conference. That way I know that I have a good plan going in. And when I talk about a plan, I certainly know people that make spreadsheets. I know people that make lots of notes inside their app. It's important to, write down all the sessions that you're interested in, but it's also important to have a backup session because sometimes the sessions that you might be interested in may fill up. You might not have gotten the cab ride that you thought you were going to get to go to a conference session, especially for something like ALA or PLA. I remember one conference I was in Chicago and I could not find a session, and I had a ton of conference guilt right then because that morning I think I had gone to an author talk or something, and that was like the time in my schedule when I was going to go to a learning session, and I literally could not get into one, and I was really, really frustrated. So be sure to have a backup session and maybe even a second backup session, especially if you're going to a really large conference. Other things for planning ahead, I always pack a little survival package, survival bag. Courtney mentioned having a water bottle, and definitely do pack a cardigan, an extra sweater. I always pack Band-Aids in case my shoes happen to be a bad shoe choice. That way you can sort of help with blisters. I always take my phone charger with me everywhere at the conference because you'd be surprised at how quickly, you want to look something up, you want to be on your app, you're looking up something that a speaker is talked about, you're adding contacts into your phone. I always find that my phone dies at conferences, so take your charger with you. Yes, there's going to be pens in the vendor hall, but sometimes the vendor hall is far away from where you are, so be sure to have a pen or a pencil. Everyone has said to take business cards. Take business cards. Something else, I liked Selina's tip of taking a selfie with people that you meet. What I used to do is to actually write something about the person on their business card because, you get back and you don't remember who these people are at all. You're like, I know nothing about who this person is. So I always write a little note about like what we talked about or where we met or something like that. Pack a little snack in case you need a pick-me-up sometime during the day. I also like to pack Tylenol or ibuprofen, cough drops, all that kind of stuff. So, and also we need a bag, right? We need a conference bag. Sometimes they give that to you. I prefer to take my own because then it's my own size. I know how much swag can fit into it, and I know that when it's full, I should stop picking up swag. Other things to think about when you're planning ahead, do you have any library friends that maybe don't work in your state that you want to reach out to? Send them a note and see if they're going to the conference as well. Is the conference in a new city? If it's in a city that's new to you, something that really helps me with anxiety is to just get to know the town a little bit before I go there, especially their transit options. I always make sure I know how to get from the hotel or how to get from the airport to my hotel or how to get from my hotel to the conference center. I get all that figured out ahead of time. That way when I go there, I know that there's a plan. Okay, a little bit more about anxiety. Once you're at the conference, it is important to get out of your comfort zone and meet people. And that doesn't mean that you have to have lunch with strangers every single day, but I think it is important to have lunch with strangers sometimes. And sometimes that can be really scary, but just remind yourself, most librarians are actually not extroverts, despite what you see at conferences. And there are people out there that are just doing their best, like me. Like I'm really an extroverted introvert. And so, I'd much rather be at home doing art than going to a conference. But if I'm there at a conference, I do try to get out there and meet people because they possibly feel the same way that I do. And it's nice to see a friendly face sometimes at a conference. No one has mentioned this, so I'm going to go ahead and mention that, if you're in a session that doesn't interest you, there is no reason that you need to stay in that session. You can leave. And the session speakers are not going to get their feelings hurt. And if they are, then they just haven't been working in the field long enough. If it's a session that doesn't interest you, then you don't have to stay. You can go to something else. I've found that I've been in sessions before, and it's just not what I was anticipating it was going to be about. So it's not even their fault. It's not that they're presenting poorly or anything like that. It's just not the information I was expecting. And so I'll pull out my plan and see what my backup was and go ahead and go to something else. It is important to take organized notes when you're at conferences. This will help you later to write that report that Selina was referring to. It's, there's nothing as frustrating as when you're a manager and you send somebody to a conference and they come back and you're like, how was the conference? And they're like, oh, it was great. What'd you learn? it was just great. I learned some things, and it was wonderful, and I can't wait to go to the next one. Well, I need a report on how your conference went. And I always ask my people to do even like bulleted lists of the various sessions that they went to and things like that. I find that to be really helpful. I also wanted to mention not to be intimidated by folks or by venues at conferences. This is literally a man that I just asked him if I could take his picture for a session on how to attend conferences. He was so proud, as you might imagine, of his many ribbons on his badge. And I know some people love to collect these. Selina had a picture of her badge with lots of ribbons on it. And but I can't get away of having certain feelings when I see people like this. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're either a superstar or they are faking it really, really well. But don't be intimidated by people that seem to be so involved. These ribbons are available kind of, they're kind of, I don't know, Uber available now. Sometimes there's whole tables and you can just pick up any ribbon that applies to you. It didn't used to be that way a long time ago. Like if you were a speaker, you got a ribbon and that was sort of coveted. But now you can, everybody can get ribbons. So feel free to grab them and don't be intimidated by folks like this. I also wanted to mention, I've got some notes here that I'm looking at, and I'm actually going to make a handout for this that I'll post along with the webinar. Do the vendor hall. I'm going to go ahead and, this is the information booth. Most conferences have these. They're here to help you. I literally did lose a laptop at a conference once. That was a good time. And I went to the information booth and was like, I lost my laptop. And they said that the lost and found is in this room. And so I went to the lost and found, and they didn't have it then, but I came back later in the day and it was absolutely there. So that was really great. So this is actually a picture of ALA in San Francisco. This is as close as I wanted to get to the vendor hall, but I did actually end up going into the vendor hall. I would say do the vendor hall. The vendors subsidize the cost of the conference, so it's important to go there and visit with them and see the kinds of things that they offer. But if you get anxiety about going to the vendor hall, do not feel like you are the only one. I hate going to vendor halls because I don't like talking to people and I don't like you know, going down all the aisles. It can get really, really crowded. But I always make myself do it because sometimes you can learn about new products from the vendor hall. Again, they really subsidize the cost of the conference. You know, they're there just, they want to be the friendliest people in the world. So no one is there to, like, I don't know, hurt you or embarrass you or anything like that. After you do the vendor hall, it's okay to leave the vendor hall and do deep breathing exercises in the hallway. I've had to do that before. So that's okay. Let's see, what else? I would also encourage people to do one event that you have no idea what it is. Sometimes if there's something on your list and you're like, man, I have no idea what that is, give it a try and see what it is, especially if it's sort of a social or a fun event. What is the one I'm trying to think of where you do a PowerPoint presentation? Oh, it's slide battle decks. That's what it's called. If you ever see battle decks, go to it because it's very funny. It's almost like an improv competition where people have a PowerPoint presentation that they've never seen before, and they have to give a presentation on a topic using someone else's slides, and it's very, very funny. So that's fun. Diane has a good tip. She says if the conference is in your city, it does help others if you can give directions, recommendations for lunch, and basically be an ambassador in that city. Thank you, Diane. That's a really, really good point. And if anyone else has conference-going tips, feel free to throw them in the chat box. The last couple things I'm going to say before I turn it over to Megan from ILF is to do ask for help if you need it, and is really that kind of the after the conference thing, you know. So when the conference is over, the conference is really not over because hopefully you've learned a lot, hopefully you've met people. The first thing I always try to do is come back and unpack my bag. I have lost my bags from conferences before, and I've lost entire contacts with people, and it's taken 2 years to find those people again. So don't lose your bag. Unpack it, get it organized, write up your report, you know, follow up with the people that you've met, send notes to people that you've met, even if it was just a brief, you know, introduction. Maybe you were both standing in line to meet an author and you met each other. I always try to send a note to those people, hey, it was great to meet you when we were standing in line to meet this author. You can get jobs that way or references that way. It's important to kind of I know everyone always says, like, build your network. Well, what does that mean? It really just means meet people in the library world. You'll never know when you're going to be in a different city and you might want to touch base with somebody. You never know when you might want a reference from a different state or a different city. Selina or Courtney, I think Courtney said to go ahead and give away, Selina I think said give away all the freebies that you've collected. Be sure to do that. Write a report for your boss or your board or your supervisor. And also, I find it's really important to make some goals about the kind of changes you want to make in your library as a result of attending the conference, and also share with others. Okay, so Selina says, save money. Buy small groceries for the hotel. This is very smart. Bring snacks. Eat in the exhibits area or sessions that provide food. That can save you money, and it can also save money for your library. Courtney says she has a tip for a conference if you're anxious about choosing sessions, making your way from point A to point B, etc. Attend Overdrive's Digipalooza conference if you can. It's the easiest and most well-run conference. I did not know that. I'll have to go there. They provide you with an option of 2 tracks. All the sessions are set for you. This sounds like my kind of conference. They provide snacks, meals, social events, etc. She can't say enough good things. That's awesome. It is so good. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Courtney. I may have to try that one. Okay, well, now we are going to go ahead and move to Megan Zanto, and Zanto. Just Zanto, just the one. Okay,
German.
And she's going to talk about the upcoming ILF conference, some real specific things about attending that conference, and I'm going to be monitoring the chat, so if anyone has questions or other tips about attending conferences, be sure to throw those in the chat box. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Like she said, I'm going to be talking about our upcoming annual conference. It's November 13th through 15th, so we are just driving right towards it. We're really excited for it. The conference is at the Marriott Indy East. It is a convenient location if you're staying on site, if you're driving from our northern or southern parts of the state, as the conference location and the hotel are one and the same. We completely take over the hotel so that you can make sure if you walk in a room accidentally, you will see friendly librarians and library staff staring back at you. So that is very convenient. You'll see that there's 2 entrances that you can go to the Marriott. There's the front entrance, and then there's a conference center entrance, and there's parking all around there. So hopefully we should be in good case for that. I didn't mention, but registration is still open for annual conference. The standard registration rate has ended, so we're now in the late registration era. But we'd like to offer for anybody doing this webinar in the next 2 days, just email me and we will offer you the standard registration rate just for attending this and listening to all of us talk. So a few other things that you could see on the slide here of our registration desk in the atrium of the hotel. Our staff, Tisa Davis, is always at the registration desk. If you ever have a question, you are welcome to come there. You will also find volunteers walking around. They will have white ribbons on their name badges. They might have an assortment of other ribbons too, as you saw from Suzanne's picture, but you can always find them with the white ribbon. And if you're there early, if you come in on Monday and you're not set to be registered until Tuesday, just come on into registration anyway, get your stuff, get oriented, and we can help you with anything that we need to. So we have a new app this year that you can go ahead and download now. It is completely up to date with all of the events that we have going on. You can go to the App Store, whether you have an iPhone or an Android, or I'm not really sure of all the differences, and just type in ILF Conference, and then it'll come up, and you can walk through the exhibit hall, and you can plan your sessions and your schedule. Like Suzanne said, if you're anxious and you want to make sure that you can get everything ahead of time, that's the best thing to do.
I'm also going to jump in and say it's also good for people that don't have anxiety.
Yeah, it's not just about that. And also, this week, the final program for ILF that you'll be receiving at registration for the conference will be up so that you can start planning as well. It gives a map of the facility that's color-coded so that you can just see your way around before you get there. I like to always know where my parking is and where I'm going to walk whenever I get to somewhere. It's not too late to register for our meals for annual conference. We have 3 meals that are add-ons to registration. You're welcome to just come for the meals as well if you know someone who's maybe going to be honored at our Awards and Honors banquet on Tuesday night. you're welcome to do so. There is no late fee for those, but it still has a deadline of November 6th so that we can get all the meals into the hotel. On Tuesday, you have the ILF luncheon, and that will have the 3x3 contest. If you went to last year's annual conference, it's where some of your fellow librarians and library staff will be getting up and making a presentation, and for a $1,000 grant, and then you can vote on them then and there of who will be walking away with the money. It's fun.
Yeah, so that might be an example of a session or an event that maybe you don't know really what it is,
right?
And you'll probably go and have a great time.
Yes, and it's full of networking too. And then there's the awards and honors banquet that night. It's for different individuals who have received some of our scholarships or awards for having excellency in the library world in Indiana. And then Wednesday, we've kind of combined an event that used to just be the YHBA meal, and now it's YHBA for the Young Hoosier Book Award and the Elliott Rosewater Book Award. So it's a combined Book Awards luncheon. We're going to be honoring all of the winners of those awards and have one of them on site. So it should be a great event. It's always fun, and you can walk away with books. Monday night, if you're going to be in town for the pre-conferences or you're coming in early for the Tuesday start, we're having dine-arounds this year. That Google form will be going out to attendees today for you to sign up for one. It's just a casual way to get kind of out of the Marriott East and into other parts. We're going to be heading to downtown, we're going to be heading to Mass Ave, and then we're going to be heading up to Castleton if you like a little less crowd. And we'll be, carpooling, and we can help you find Ubers, whatever you need to do.
So this is almost like networking done for you.
Mm-hmm.
You just sign up for a dine around, and automatically you're meeting new people, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And going to a new restaurant, and that'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Tuesday evening, we have the IU Library and Information Science alumni event, and that's we set it up this year, so hopefully it's not interfering with any sessions. Moving quickly. And those are just some of our awardees in the past from the Awards and Honors meal. There's a map that you could find in the program. It has everything color-coded, and I'm one of those people.
Yeah, and I also want to mention, not only have I attended a lot of conferences, I've also planned a lot of conferences, and I always get people that say, why don't you provide a map? There's always a map.
Yeah.
So be sure to look in your
it's in your program.
It's in your program.
It's around the building. We have some signs too.
Yeah.
They might not be color coded, but you'll always find. And like I said, just stop at registration desk. You can even ask a Marriott staff member if you're lost. They are the kindest people ever. So we'll help you get where you need to go. The next thing is the Kids Inc. Bookstore. Shirley Mullen helps us out a lot each year, and she has all of the books available for any of the authors that will be attending our conference, as well as some others maybe that are speaking, or some that are going to be that were on old YHBA and Rosie list. And so she'll be doing that. And then the authors, we have a list of authors who will be signing on Tuesday and Wednesday, which you can find in the final program or on the app, including our keynote on Tuesday, which is Maggie Stiefvater. And she'll be signing. So hopefully it's a good thing. We try to manage lines really well so that you can get to your session, but it's right after the keynote, and there's some no conflict time in between there. There's some more pictures of some of our past authors for the author singing, including last year's James Patterson.
Woohoo.
Our exhibit hall, while it's not as scary as ALA's, we have about 60 to 70 exhibitors. They want nothing but to make you happy. They don't want to cause you anxiety. They don't want to, bother you and make you feel uncomfortable. They really just want to make some new connections and make some new friends. And like Suzanne said, they're helping support the conference. Without their help, the registration costs would be a lot higher, and then it would make it impossible for a lot of you to attend. So make sure you visit them. I know which ones have chocolate, so I can help point out that if you need a chocolate break throughout the day.
That is a big benefit.
That is. You don't need to take home bags and pens, but they have chocolate, and that's important. We have our silent auction, and we have our poster sessions. Our silent auction will only be on one day this year, I believe, depending on how many other items we get in the next few weeks. And then our poster sessions are on Wednesday, and it's just a way to support your colleagues, who took time to submit these posters, and have conversations with them, learn some more about what they're offering, and then we have some of our volunteers who will select a winner, for lack of a better word, and then that person will get a free registration to next year's event. So it's really just supporting your colleagues. And then above all, it's about the experience. It's not just about coming for the LEU content. It's about coming for networking and to learn more from your fellow colleagues or come back and have a really great program idea. We have some conversation rooms that are going to be available throughout the conference if you need a quiet space to go to. We'll have some of those that you can just dip into. And like I said, if at any time you need a question or you just want a friendly face to talk to, please visit the registration desk. We don't want you eating lunch in your car by yourself because you weren't sure who to talk to or what to do. We want you to come eat lunch with us at the registration desk. We'll be happy to, or TISA will at least be happy to sit there and talk with you. So those are just some pictures from last year's conference. You see having some good time there. And then just some last things about there is a lot of LEU opportunity at our conference, so make sure that you turn your form in at the end of the conference so we can send you your certificate. The same with your evaluations. We really use your feedback to shape our conferences. We listen to you. We go back and we say, let's try this. Let's try to do this. We need topics on this. So we really do listen to your evaluations. And we have, as you're gearing up for the conference that's just in a few weeks, we have a hashtag that we use, and then you can always tag our handle on social media so that we can see that you're getting excited too. And so I think that's all that I have.
Awesome. Well, I do have all of our contact information up there, so if anyone has other questions about attending conferences, feel free to send an email to any of us. I didn't clear that ahead of time, and I realized that I put an S on the end of Megan's name.
It happens all the time.
So I'm sorry, but I'm sure that everyone would be fine answering questions about conferences. And I guess I'll just say one thing about eating lunch in your car, because, I think sometimes that can be a thing. Sometimes people need that, they need that time away. But I would never want anyone to do that because, like you said, because they didn't know of another option. It's one thing if you're sort of choosing that because you just need a break, right. But it's another thing if you're sadly eating in your car because you don't have a friend and you would like to have a friend.
We'll be your friend.
Absolutely. Everyone at conferences, the thing that I like to remind people is that we all speak the same language, and also we're all working in libraries. And if you don't know what to say to a new person, a great thing is well, what do you do in your library? Mm-hmm. And then automatically you have a conversation going. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I hope that this was helpful for everyone today. I want to thank Selina and Courtney and Megan so much for sharing their tips and tricks for conference attending. I've been wanting to do this webinar for a really long time just to help people like me that don't love conferences but have to go to them frequently. So I hope that this is helpful. And again, we will get this transcribed and out on YouTube to share with the world. And when we upload it to our website, I'll also have a sort of handout with a lot of these tips. Okay? All right, well, thank you everybody so much. Have a great day.